so that if we have any folks that are unable to join us, we will record this, make it available, cut out all of the work time we have planned because no one needs to see you working. But anyway, we'll go ahead and jump in. The question about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be virtual as well. We wanted to wait to let everyone know because we've sent everyone a lot of emails today. And we thought if we sent one about tomorrow before this PD, you might, or this evening, you might think it was about this evening. So tomorrow will be virtual as well. And we will do our best to have tons of breaks. We'll have plenty of work time embedded in. So I promise you, I won't be talking at you for like 6 hours. With that being said, let's go ahead and look at our agenda. And that way you can kind of see what we have on tap tonight and tomorrow. We're going to go over some introductions. We'll do some fun like community building real quick. I'm going to kind of open up my brain and look and let you guys kind of see behind the scenes, like how this is designed from like a teacher perspective. Because we're going to be toggling back and forth between, you as a learner and you as an educator. Because right now you're in a PD, you're a learner, I'm a facilitator, but you're also an educator all the time too. So we're going to kind of think with both hats on. We're going to be developing some becoming me profiles. You get to tell me all about who you are as a human being, a learner and an educator. And we're going to use that together to construct the most personalized experience we can together. And then we'll kind of go into what is personalized learning, what is it not? And we'll look at some specific examples and strategies just to give you like some explicit, concrete handles as we start designing things together. And then we'll reflect and do our Netflix and chill and then see each other tomorrow. We have in a just really quick kind of perfunctory attendance form. I'm going to put that in the chat. It's also embedded in our slide deck, but the chat is probably going to be the easiest place for you to complete that. It's literally you just clicking on the link and clicking your pathway. So I'll give everyone a couple minutes. Please go ahead and fill out the attendance form. And then we'll jump back in.
Do you have a list of which one that we signed up for? Because I've now been in 2 rooms and I still don't think I'm in the right place.
Hi, Amber.
I'm not sure which one I signed up for, honestly. I don't think I saved that Google form.
I
I'm
sure
so sorry.
do. No problem.
I feel like the biggest idiot.
No, not at all. I will have a look at our master spreadsheet
It's
here.
Mormon Burke is it would be under the ends.
I think you are in PBL, Amber.
Which is where I started at. Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. Y'all have a great
problem.
evening.
Is anyone else having issues accessing the Google form? No? Connor, make sure you're logged into your JCPS email. And then if for whatever reason, if you didn't click on the link that's in the chat, click on the link that's in the chat. And that should work. I'll give everyone another minute or two, and then we'll jump back in.
Yeah, it keeps like pulling it up. It won't pull it up in Chrome. And then when I like copy the link and open it in Chrome, even when I'm logged in, for some reason it doesn't.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat again, and then I'll try and email it directly to you and see if maybe that helps.
Okay, yeah, that hopefully.
And I think I spelled attendance wrong on here, so maybe. All right, Connor, I just emailed that to you. And if you click on it from your JCPS email, it should automatically be signed in as your JCPS.
Yes. Okay, yeah, that worked. Thank you.
Good. Okay, great. And Dewan, it's not working for you either. Double check and make sure you're signed into your JCPS email. And while you're checking that, I'll email it directly to you, and hopefully that works for you like it did for Connor. All right, boom, email sent. Okay, while you guys are jumping back into that, we're gonna jump back into our slide deck. I just want to give you an overview of what tomorrow is going to look like real quick too, because it is virtual. So tomorrow we'll start at 9 virtually here on this same Zoom with another quick community builder. We want to begin with the end in mind so that you know what the success criteria for your final defense to earn your final stipend and certification looks like. So we're going to spend some time going over what the final defense process and content will look like. I'll have some stuff to share and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. You'll have more work time to work on your plan for personalized learning. We'll talk about that more in just a couple minutes, but we're going to call it a constellation. It goes with the space theme. So we're going to work on that. The brunt of our work time for that is tomorrow. We'll do some deep dive stations after you get started and start tinkering. You'll have an opportunity to dig a little bit more into each of the personalized learning components. We'll break for lunch. And then we'll go back after lunch, come back into work time. You'll have more time to tinker. We'll all be here. I'll be here. So if you want any one-on-one time or you want to hop in a breakout room with someone that teaches something similar to you and brainstorm together, I'll send that to you in a second, Ryan. Or something like that. We've got the ability to do that. I'm also going to be hosting some optional workshops tomorrow where I'll set up a breakout room, and based on some of the questions that you asked tonight that we're going to capture on a Jamboard, after we finish up tonight, I'll construct some workshops for you tomorrow, just based on what your questions are, what you want to know about, what you want to talk more about. And you can come to those tomorrow or you can keep working. That's totally up to you. You'll have some time to get some feedback on whatever plan you're making to implement personalized learning in your classroom. You'll have some more time to implement the feedback. And then we'll close and talk about next steps. So tomorrow is a whole lot of like work time back together, work time back together, ebb and flow. Try to break that up for everyone just so no one's being talked at for any significant amount of time. Okay, so with that being said, let's get to know each other. I've been part of the cohort throughout the year and the deeper learning team for a couple years, but if you don't know me, I'm Maddie Shepard. My corgi Wendell Berrygood might make a cameo appearance while we're having our professional learning experience tonight. He most certainly will tomorrow. I really like true crime podcasts. I have a 3-year-old daughter, Ruby, who's my sidekick and comes almost everywhere with me. She might make a cameo appearance too. And then I'm heavily involved in Jefferson County Teachers Association, our teachers union. I live and breathe education and teaching, y'all. So the question I want to pose to you, and I am so jazzed to hear your answers, are what reality show do you think you would win if you were on, and why? While you have a chance to think about that, I'm going to put everyone in breakout rooms. You'll be in small groups of 4 or 5. So I'd like you to just tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you teach, any other really important detail about you, and then share what reality show you would win if you were on and why. We'll come back in about 2.5 minutes. And the funniest answers I would love to hear. All right, breakout rooms are open. As everyone's coming back, real quick, what were some hilarious answers? What reality show would you win and why?
Well, I'll share. I was in one with Lisa, and she's driving, and she's pivoted multiple times this evening, which is impressive. And she's still in a PD with us. And we had a common bond that she loves Big Brother. And she said she could win Big Brother because she's observant and people tell her secrets. And the funny thing was, is I was coming at the angle is I don't think I would win, but I love the show. So we connected because I'm too emotionally connected to people and it would hurt my feelings. But we had an enjoyable conversation.
Thank you for sharing. Lisa, I hope this is one of the days where at the end of the day, you're like, damn, I kicked today's ass. What else, y'all? What other reality TV shows would you win if you were on?
I said nailed it because I'm an amateur baker, but I could probably manage.
That's good. That's good. I love that show.
I said Survivor because I feel like if I've survived through like teaching seventh graders for the past 5 or 6 years, I think I can survive anything and convince anyone to do anything because it's just mind games.
You're right. Mind games. And as a teacher, you're used to going long periods of time without food. Who
Yep.
knows what kind of environment you're going to have to be in? It's a lot of really good training to be on a deserted island. Well, not a deserted island, but an island with people that you might have to convince to do things or not do things.
Exactly. So I'm ready.
Love that answer. Thanks, Connor and Jennifer and Jordan for sharing. We'll jump back in. So, again, I told you I was gonna kind of like open up my brain, and I'll do that throughout our time today, tomorrow, and any other time we interfaced with the personalized learning pathway. Our team really tries to model whatever it is that we're trying to teach you to do. So I have constructed a personalized learning experience, or started to construct as much as I can without, knowing you fully, about personalized learning. So a lot of the components that you'll see tonight that we're talking about throughout the next couple weeks, I have tried to integrate a lot of those components, a lot of those types of experiences into what we're doing in our like adult learning scenario. They're by no means perfect and maybe not even good. But the purpose is just to embed a lot of these things so you have a chance to experience some of the components as a learner before you're ever asked to design or implement it as a teacher. So we're going to take a couple meta moments, if you will, throughout the experience to kind of point some of those things out. And then just as another visual cue, I'll zoom out a little bit. On all of the slides, I have tagged a couple things. So throughout the slide deck, there are some tags in the margins, just to kind of call out some of the personalized learning components that are happening, just to make it even more explicit. So for example, we're about to jump into the learner profile, which is one of the components that we'll be exploring. I'm calling it a becoming me profile, because it's about your growth. But it's the same thing. So learner profile and becoming me profile, synonyms. And then I also tagged this with the evidence as assessment of learning, because in order to show competency at the end of our time together in the spring, you're not going to take an assessment. Your attendance is not, how we're going to assess or monitor you. It's about you collecting and creating your own evidence, which is another element of personalized learning. So I tagged that here as well. And then you'll see, like, when we jump into the becoming me profile, you're going to set some goals. Personal learning goals is an element of personalized learning. So I just say that to say there's some tags on kind of like what's going on underneath the iceberg throughout the slide deck. So I just wanted to explain what those were. So without further ado, we'll jump into that next piece. One of the big elements of personalized learning is about agency. And in this scenario, you're the learner. So I want you to have tons of agency. I want you to be able to declare what kind of learner you are, who you want to be, what you want to study, what you want to try, what you want to engage with, how you want to grow, and make a lot of those decisions yourself. Hopefully by the end of a lot of our exploration together, you feel better about positioning kids to do these things at various levels and various degrees. Your adults obviously are much better positioned to make decisions about your learning than a younger human being, but hopefully we're able to look at some of those modifications and scaffolds along the way. So what we're about to do is you'll go into Google Classroom, and I'll walk everyone through this so we know exactly what to look for. Once you're in Google Classroom, you're going to go to your Space Redesigned Classroom. You'll go to Classwork. You'll see our personalized learning pathway topic right here. And you're going to click on Becoming Me profiles. Everyone should have their own Becoming Me profile that's generated just for them. See if our clickies are working here. And we're going to spend some time, I don't know why that's not working. Just working on your Becoming Me profile. It's pretty simple. It's not overly sexy or anything like that, but oh, there we go. Just had to refresh. And I'm not really concerned about you turning it in per se. I just had to do it that way so that it generated a copy for everyone. But this is just a way for you to tell me who you are and what you want to learn and do and be throughout the experience. And considering that we have 2 hours together tonight, we're going to spend about 20 to 25 minutes on this, which is a significant portion of our 2 hours. And the reason that I am spending that amount of time capital on something like this is that it's really important that I, as your facilitator, Neha, I will add you to this. Sorry about that. Is that I, as your facilitator, know who you are as a human being and who you are as a learner. And for our context, who you are as an educator, because that's going to influence all of the resources, all of the playlists, all of the learning experiences that I put together or that we look for or try ourselves. And that's like at the heart of personalized learning, is you being an active participant just as you are. So there's just some directions on how to fill this out. Really, it's pretty simple. All about me as a person, as a learner, as an educator. There's some notes, some prompts in the notes section of the slide deck. This is designed to be kind of like a title slide, and you'll put your content in the slide after. The same here. This is designed to be a title slide, and you'll put your stuff in the slide after. You can add as many slides as you want. You can change the layout. You can add videos. You can add pictures, like whatever you want to do. Don't go too crazy though, because you only have like 25 minutes. You can go crazy later if you want. And then don't go to this last piece just yet. When our timer goes off at 20 minutes, we'll come back together and we'll talk about the growth and competency piece together. So just worry about these first 3 parts, have fun, tell me about you, put some pictures in, answer the prompts, and my task as your facilitator is to go through these things and get to know you as best I can so that all of these parts about you influence the learning that we have together. What questions do you guys have about what we're going to do for the next 20 minutes? All right, well, Neha, I will add you to all of those assignments if you can't see those. But I'll be here while you guys are here. So if you need to hop in a breakout room with me for a one-on-one, or if you have a question to put in the chat, that's totally cool. I'll put on some like white noise type music, and Melinda, I'll add you too. Sorry about that. So Melinda and Neha. But I'll set a timer for about 20 minutes for you to work on your Becoming Me profile. Tell me who you are. All right, that was my timer. Finish up the sentence you're typing or the picture that you're pasting or something like that. And come back all together. Okay, as everyone's kind of coming back, I'll just do like a really quick catch for us to go over this last part together. And the last part, the growth and competency part, should be pretty quick. I think generally most people will spend a lot of time talking about most people's favorite subject, which is me. But sometimes growth and competency isn't as fun. But we'll talk about this real quick, and then I'll release you for just a couple minutes to tell me a little bit about just how you're kind of feeling right now about your competency around personalized learning. And then we'll try and build it. So this last portion of the slide deck you're working on, the last 4 slides, are about your competency. So for me as a facilitator, and for me as an educator that always tries to embody personalized learning, competency-based learning, there's 4 big components, just me as a designer, that I always try and integrate: identity, sense of belonging, agency, and competency. And so part of why I chose to model the Becoming Me profile component is because I want to get to know who you are. Your identity as a person, as an educator, is really important through this process. I want you to feel a sense of belonging in the group. We design a lot of small group stuff and a lot of get to know you things that, yeah, at times are like annoying and touchy-feely, but hopefully help you build an identity and sense of belonging within the group as a whole. We intentionally build a lot of decision-making points and a lot of control for you as a learner to have, so you have agency. And we like for you to have a hand and some metacognition around building your competency. I gotta turn that off. Sorry about that. I'm talking over it. And so some of us like touchy-feely. I know, me too. I never thought I did until I was like, I actually love doing all these things. But put that in your Becoming Me profile. I want to know that about you. And so this last portion is about your own read on your own competency. And so you'll see that there is an X in the margin of your slide deck on slide 10, 11, and 12. And all I want you to do over the next literally 5 minutes is look at this question: how competent, not proficient, not mastery, but competent, do you feel in designing for learners to have agency? And there are some descriptors here on a scale of 1 to 5. You'll just pick up your little X and move it to wherever you are. Wherever you are is not bad or good. It's just where you are. I'd like you to do that for the second question. How competent do you feel in utilizing various strategies? There's a couple examples down here, so you know what I'm talking about. Those aren't the only strategies, but I wanted to put some examples on there so you had some handles. And then the last question: how competent do you feel in capturing and communicating your own learning about personalized learning in a defense scenario? So on all 3 of those slides, you'll just move your X to wherever you feel. And again, wherever you feel or wherever you are is not bad or good. It's just where you are. So if everyone wouldn't mind to take 2 or 3 minutes. And Rachel has a good question right now, just about designing. We're not at the implementation part yet, so just designing. Thank you for asking that clarifying question. So about 2 or 3 minutes, just for you to capture what you feel about where you are in your competency. If you're not finished, go ahead and finish up. But we're going to move on. So this is one of those meta moments where I just want us to think about that exercise as a whole, from a learner perspective, how that felt for you to fill that out as a learner in this PD together. And then in just a minute, we'll talk about, with your teacher hat on, your educator hat on, what value that might have or how you might do something like that in your classroom. The first question is can be a little vulnerable. So the first question, with your learner hat on: how did that exercise of filling out your Becoming Me profile and capturing your own read of your competency feel to you? If you want to share that out loud, great, please do. If you'd rather put that in the chat just to me, that's fine too. We'll have just a couple minutes just to kind of talk that out from a learner perspective.
I can share. So I feel when I am true with myself and telling myself where I am, I can move on and grow and like learn more. If I didn't sit and write that down and see myself where I am, um, I feel I'm just gonna keep going, and really I'm not gonna accomplish or like achieve more than um, like the daily routine. I'm going to school, but if I have a goal and I write it down and I see myself where I am, um, that's kind of will move me forward to the goal. I don't know if you got what I'm saying or not.
Yeah, it capturing it, writing it down just kind of creates more awareness, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with what she was saying, and I think like seeing myself where I'm at and kind of at this point in teaching and what like because my goal is like I spend so much time at work, like I want to enjoy my job, I want to have fun, and I feel like I do. And so kind of transferring that into this of like, okay, what can then I provide? Like you kind of want your kids to have that same thing. Like they come to school, they want like you want to, it's almost like tricking them into learning, like find the thing that they enjoy or that's personalized to them that'll help them grow the most, since that's kind of like what I feel I'm doing now at this stage of like my career in life. I just turned 30, so I'm going through a real crisis.
I saw that in your slide deck, and 30 is not old, okay? 30 is very young.
Mentally it is.
Thank you for sharing, Heba and Connor, and everyone else that's putting some stuff in the chat. Again, like if you'd like to share with the group, please do. If you'd rather put something in the chat that's a little, quieter under the radar, if you want to put something just to me, totally fine. Does anyone else want to share kind of how that felt for you as a learner?
I really enjoyed it. I touchy feely, guilty. Oh, Catherine's sharing too. Should I stop?
Oh,
Go ahead,
Jennifer, and
Catherine.
then we'll jump to Catherine.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just enjoyed it. Thank you, by the way.
Sorry.
I'm a little touchy feely for middle school, and I like it. I lead like you do, Maddie, and that's one of the reasons I picked you. Is it was a connection I felt, so I'm willing to share that, and I like to connect with my kids, so I do questions kind of like you're doing with us with them, not as in depth, but I like this feel. So to me, I enjoyed it very much. And then rating myself, I see a lot of people that's a little more uncomfortable because I don't like to brag, but I don't want to sound like I don't know, it's just always like, eh. But I don't mind sharing about myself.
Thank you. And just FYI purposes, nobody but me can see your competency ratings. So don't fret about, I'm not putting them on Twitter, I'm not putting them on a t-shirt or anything like that. Catherine, what were you gonna say? I don't know if this is the case for anyone else, but you're breaking up a little bit. I still can't hear you, Catherine. If you wouldn't mind to share in the chat and or maybe restart your Zoom because you are a little choppy and sound like the AI got to you. But whenever you're ready. Oh, there you go. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for sharing. I know rating yourself and maybe even sometimes if for some people talking about yourself is like maybe more vulnerable than you want to be. So thank you guys for doing that. What about from an educator perspective? Will be a little vulnerable and share. So while I have done something like this with kids, it is really easy for me to do this first step and like collect the data what has been more challenging for me is keeping it alive and going back to it and making sure that it's influencing whatever I'm designing, or how I approach a person, whether it's a kid or an adult. So that's something like I'm working on really hard with this cohort is kind of stretching my muscle to keep the Becoming Me profiles central to my design process. So feel free to hold me accountable to that. What about you guys? How might you use or do something like this in your context? And again, feel free to share out loud or feel free to put something in the chat, whatever strategy works for you.
I'll share. One of the things I really liked about this is it allowed you some time to think in your own head and a minute to like collect your thoughts. And I think sometimes I have to remember that with children, that they need that time. It was personalized. They looked at it. They could share if they want to share like we're doing now, but sometimes kids just want to put it down and for you just to see it. So it kind of taps in a lot of ways for kids to be able to express themselves, especially with ML learners that may be writing in one language and you need time to translate and have conversation with them a little bit later. So I think it just kind of helps with all the different learning styles. And I think that was kind of me when I did it. Some of the slides are really easy for me to fill out. And some of them I had to really stop and think, ooh, that's a question I haven't thought about in a while. Or how do I want to approach that? Or, and that's that being true to yourself. And I think kids sometimes verbally say things that may not be deeply how they feel. And this gives them an opportunity to have a different pathway.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. I especially appreciate the ML consideration. I myself am not ML, and so it's not like I don't like revert to or like my automatic setting isn't to think about that. I have to prompt myself to do it. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Thank you. Anyone else? How might or could you use this as an educator? And again, thank you to everyone that's putting stuff in the chat. Make sure to kind of peruse the chat too, because we do have kind of two conversation lines happening.
I really love the pacing of it. It was just enough time to make me feel rushed, but not so rushed I couldn't get my thoughts down. I need to work on that. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Rachel. Carrie, that's funny that you put that in the chat. So about and Emily too, it's kind of a connected comment, stories about ourselves. So the almost all of the PD that the deeper learning team does ends in some kind of defense-like thing. We're trying to stop calling it defense because surprise, people hate that word, adults and kids alike. It's very high stress. But I think what we want and what the district in its heart of hearts always wanted the defenses to be was like me telling my story, my learning story, my growth story. So hopefully my under the iceberg hope is that when we get to a point in a couple months where we're collecting evidence to show competency, we come back to our Becoming Me profiles and we're able to look at who we are right now and look at how we've grown and kind of have those 2 points of trajectory, I guess, while we're telling our stories. So thank you guys for bringing that up. That's very connected to kind of the design for this. And I also love the stories in the chat about connecting how you're already doing this in a lot of your classes, or you think you kids would like this, or some of you have experience working on learner profiles at a school-wide or a grade-wide scale too. Okay, thank you. I won't belabor that point. And again, like, thank you for reflecting aloud or in the chat with me and with our group. So what is personalized learning? We're gonna just kind of like scratch the surface, like go over some like vocabulary, if you will, for tonight. We'll spend a lot more time diving into this tomorrow. And just like you would, like if you were in a position where, you know, your kids were filling out a learner profile or a Becoming Me profile, and you went to it before you constructed something else, like that's literally what is going to happen. After we finish up tonight, I'm looking through our learner profiles. I've already got kind of like a blueprint, a skeleton of what our stations will look like tomorrow. But the rest of the skeleton, this reference is for you, Melinda, the muscles, the organs, the other body systems will be filled out largely by what you put in your Becoming Me profiles. So I have some, you know, some basic architecture, but a lot of that stuff I'll put in based on who you guys are and what you said you want to know and what your affinities for learning are. So what is personalized learning? What is it not? I would like to capture the will or the thinking of the group in this slide deck if you're following along. And if not, I'll put it in the chat. I'd like everyone to just jump to this Jamboard just real quick, like less than 5 minutes. Using the Jamboard, just capture in your own brain, in your mind, in your experience, what's the lore around personalized learning? What is it? What is it not? And I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat for everyone. And I'll set a timer for real quick, just about 2 minutes to brain dump what is personalized learning and what is it not. All right, the Jamboard is now in the chat. So if everyone wouldn't mind, just take a post-it. What is it? What is it not? Thank you so much for doing this. You guys absolutely get it. Honestly, I have to tell you, while I really love that everyone really has a strong handle on the concepts behind personalized learning, what I appreciate more is that you have a strong handle on what personalized is not. You're right, it is not a free-for-all. It is not just everyone doing whatever they want all the time. It is not an IEP for each student. It's not a teacher planning a singular experience for every kid for every class period, dear Lord. It's also not everyone doing the same thing at the same pace. And sometimes I don't think that's the intent, but sometimes that's how things are rolled out in JCPS. And that's all I'll say about that. It's not isolated learning. It's not sticking kids on laptops. I think technology can magnify and multiply what the teacher can do and what the student can do. But the technology can't do those things. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, not kids on screens every day, not one size fits all. But it is kids having agency and engagement and about the human beings, the people in our classrooms, ownership, responsibility, kids showing what they know in a performance-based way. You guys are fabulous. This is wonderful. Thank you. So, I mean, like this is right on, absolutely. Broadly, we all have a really good handle on what personalized learning is and is not. If you skipped ahead or even if you didn't, you did a fabulous job. Simplified, it's human-centered. It's not technology-centered. It's not content-centered. I would be willing to wager that most of us, I know I definitely was, trained to first think about my content and plan around my content. And it took a long time for me to unlearn that and plan around the human beings and use the content as a vehicle to engage them or help them experience and learn new skills or competencies. So it's about people. You got that. It's not doing things to people or for them. It's with and from. We're going to talk a lot about some of the role shifts that happen in a personalized learning classroom. Traditionally, the teacher is the all-knowing decision maker and the final say and makes all the decisions, does all the plans. In a personalized classroom, kids take on some of that, hopefully a lot of that, making decisions and being a resource in the room. So some of those role shifts will happen with some of the strategies that we're going to talk about potentially implementing. And then, like I just said, the learner plays an active and meaningful role. The learner should go home at school or after school every day as mentally and physically tired as you do, maybe more. So the learner needs to play an active role in decision-making and being a resource in the classroom. And that really at its heart is what personalized learning is what it's about. I can and will show you, I'll put them in playlists and put them in our materials, examples of personalized learning classrooms, personalized learning plans, personalized learning schools. But I'll always do it with a disclaimer to say it looks different everywhere. There is no prescription. There is no one or right way, because there is no one or right person or one or right classroom. Yes, whoever's put this in the chat, Emily Nalchrist, yes, if kids know the why behind what we're doing, it's a very different experience for them. In fact, who was it that was teaching a psychology class? That might have been you too, Emily. Yeah. Psychologically speaking, if you ask a person to do something, they are like a lot of times more likely to do it if they know why. Anytime I'm complaining about something out in the world, I'm like, well, the reason I'm asking about this is because blah, blah, blah. And I find that I get what I want more often that way. But yeah, knowing the why behind what we're doing is really important for motivation, for kids to feel invested in it. Thank you for adding that, Emily. And then just another resource, I'll post this in Google Classroom. We went over this briefly over the summer while we were at the U of L Shelby campus. This is just a chart to compare individualization, differentiation, and personalization. I share this not to say that any one is better or worse than the other, just to show the differences. There's a time and a place for all three of these situations. Personalization is where the learner makes a lot of the decisions and does a lot of the work. You'll see that with the sentence stem up here. But there are times when differentiation is most appropriate. There are times when individualization is most appropriate. The important thing is knowing what each of these things looks like and knowing when to deploy each strategy. So I'll put that in our Google Classroom. If you're on the slide deck following along, this picture is a link to that as well, if you wanted to keep it and save it to your desktop like me. And then, okay, so let's dive into the framework we'll use. I'm going to skip ahead just a second to show you this first. So tomorrow we'll spend a lot of time working on a product. You will be working on a plan, not like a big, cumbersome plan, but a plan of how you're going to implement personalized learning. We're going to learn a little bit about it tonight and tomorrow, and then you'll have a lot of work time to work on your plan. But your plan's going to look like this. You will choose an essential foundation component. You'll choose 2 learning and teaching strategies, and you'll choose a role and relationship structure. So 4 things. They're not all like the role and relationship structure is something you hope will happen. These other things are things you're going to kind of plan for. I just want to kind of show you that before we get into the honeycomb piece. And if you've got questions, don't worry. I'll probably answer a lot of them when we look at the honeycomb. And if I don't, ask them. So there's a lot of different frameworks around personalized learning. The one that we're going to use for our purposes, simply because I think it's the most expansive and it's the most recently updated, is the Institute for Personalized Learning's framework. And they call their framework the honeycomb. I have linked the honeycomb website in the slide deck. I'll also go ahead and put the link in the chat as well. If I were you, I would bookmark this page. I go to it constantly, like a lot. A lot of our resources are scattered throughout the website. You likely will spend some time here. I'll go over the architecture of this real quick, and then I'll shut up and let you kind of explore and ask some questions. So we'll start in the middle. what we are all trying to build and grow and foster is an empowered learner. The first kind of ring of the honeycomb that we're looking at is blue. Those are the essential foundations. And again, for your product that you're working on, your constellation, you're going to choose one of these to focus on, just one. One is a learner profile. We just did that. You just experienced that as a learner yourself. As your facilitator, I'm going to use that in my learning designs moving forward. It could look a lot of different ways for you. Another essential foundation, customized learning paths. How might a learner have some choices in how they customize or adjust their own learning? Maybe it's how they access, maybe it's how they show something. We'll get into more of what that will look like later. Another one is competency-based progress. This is how they move down the learning path. Not only the pace, but what determines movement. Is it simply time? Do we just like spend a week on this thing and now we're out of time and now we move on? Or is it based on competency? Do you move on when you're ready? How can I create the conditions for kids moving on when ready, but also not having a situation where, you know, so-and-so is what I lovingly call a turtle and is, you know, moving at a slower pace than my principal or my scope and sequence would like. How do I create the conditions for that competency-based progress? And then finally, learner agency. How can I build in a ton of opportunities for learners to make decisions? So those are the essential foundations. That's our first ring. Those are probably like the biggest, most central pieces, which might be why they're in the center. The next ring that we'll talk about are the learning and teaching components. These are like explicit strategies that you can use. They might have explicit scripts. There might be explicit protocols. This is like the most specific ring, in my opinion. So things like timely, actionable feedback. If you choose that, how might you integrate timely, actionable feedback in your lessons? Is it through a feedback protocol, like what we've done a couple times with the Critical Friends protocol, or a feedback protocol we're going to do tomorrow? Is it through feedback that you give a student digitally on a rubric? There's really explicit ways to implement a lot of these components. Personal learning goals. Vanessa talked about this. If this is something you're already doing, but maybe you feel like you could do better, that's totally fine if you want to pick something like that. Conferring or conferencing. How might you have build in some advisory sessions throughout your personal or throughout your class period? We can also talk about scale too. If you're a teacher, like a lot of, I mean, elementary, middle and high school teacher, if you've got like 33 kids in your class and conferring and conferencing with all of them isn't feasible, we can talk about scale. Maybe you explore what it's like and compare these 5 versus these 5. Did this improve their competency if they had this conferring or conferencing opportunity? So that's a component. Evidence as assessment of learning. Rather than like a test, is there another type of demonstration of learning, a performance assessment or something you can design? So that's a component you could choose. Small group learning, curiosity-driven learning. We'll model some of that so you can get a feel for that too. Inquiry-based learning. I know some of you like live and breathe the IDM model. If you don't live and breathe that and you choose this component, that's something we can explore. Learner voice. How can kids give you feedback on what's going on and how would you use that feedback? So you're going to, in your constellation, you're going to choose 2 of the yellow things to implement or focus on. Questions so far? Okay. And then the third ring, we have the green ring. Those are roles, relationships, and structures. So the conjecture is that if you are implementing things that are yellow, the strategies and teaching and learning things, if you have some kind of focus around progress or pathways or learners making decisions, what should happen in your classroom is that roles start to switch. Learners will see each other as resources and themselves, not just the teacher. It might be that you focus on community partnerships and bringing the community in as a resource. It might be that kids start to co-design assessment with you. You know, you might say, hey, you've got to show me this skill, and this skill, but you get to kind of propose to me how you're going to show me that. Maybe that's a role switch that you see. You might move into more of a coaching role. If you're a type A teacher like me and you really want to focus on letting go a little bit and being more of a facilitator, more of a coach, maybe that's the role shift that you choose. You're going to choose one of the green things, and you won't necessarily like implement the green thing, but that's a role shift that we're going to kind of go for as a result of the yellow things that we implement, if that makes sense. And then finally, the most outer ring are the like big systems and structures. These are things that are often beyond a single teacher or a single classroom. These are like school-wide, district-wide, statewide things. A culture of innovation, you know, that's a school-wide thing. Educator agency, educators making decisions and having autonomy. Recognizing anytime, anywhere learning. Getting credit for something that happened outside the classroom, outside the school day. The idea is that with enough teachers and kids in a school doing all of these innermost things, they start to push on the structures within a school, and school and district structure starts to change. The purple are school and district structures. And you guys in the cohort together aren't all in the same school, but you are in the same district. And hopefully within our cohort, we start to see some of these bigger systemic pieces change, and we already are, I'm sure, as a result of some of the work you're doing around, in our case, personalized learning, or in the other pathways, design thinking, or project-based learning. So with that being said, over here on this menu, if you click on each of the rings, there's a little bit more detail about what each of these things means. So I'll stop talking and give everyone a little bit of time to just dive into each of the kind of rings around the honeycomb, and maybe even explore the website if you would like. But we'll set a timer for about 12 minutes. If we need more time, you can have it. If not, then we'll move on to the next piece. Time-wise, we are like right on pace, good for us. And I did, okay, yeah, and the link for that website is in the chat. So I'll stop talking, but I am here. If you want to message me, if you want to talk to me in a breakout room or something, all those things are opportunities too. Hopefully you've had a chance to kind of peruse the honeycomb menu, and hopefully some stuff stuck out to you that you might want to try to implement. Like I said, tomorrow we'll have some resources and some stations, or I will, around like conferring and conferencing resources or learner voice resources. So you can kind of dive more deeply into like what it could look like minute by minute, a protocol for doing so, that kind of thing. So we'll jump back in here. Okay, so again, tomorrow our big goal is to, or two big goals, three big goals actually. Dive more deeply into each one of these personalized learning components, so you've got a better idea of what it could look like. Work time, so you have time to put a plan together, and I have a template for you that it's already in Google Classroom. If you wanted to be an eager beaver and look at it, it's very broad. It's just a way for you to capture how you're going to do these things. And then 3, for us to have some time to chat about what your final demonstration is going to look like, how you can capture and communicate how you've grown, how you've become competent in personalized learning. And we'll go over our rubric as well. So those are our 3 big goals for tomorrow. We'll choose the parts of our constellation. We'll make our plan. We'll dive more deeply into what those constellation parts would look like, so you're better positioned to make your plan. And then we'll talk about certification. What I would like to end on, this is kind of our like reflection and our closing, is a know and need to know protocol. So if you've been in any of our project-based learning workshops, this is a protocol that we do like all the time. It has other versions, KWL charts. it's just a way for me as your facilitator to capture what you already know and look for some trends, like, okay, they don't need any resources on that, they've got it. Or what you've got questions about, what you want more resources on, what you want more examples about. So it's the same Jamboard that we used earlier. I will put that link in the chat again, just so that you can find it a little more easily. But we're going to be looking at page 2 and 3. So if you have gone, great, but make sure you're still listening. In just a minute, I'm going to set everyone off to capture your nose via the little digital Post-its. What do you already know about personalized learning? Could be something you knew before you came in. Great. Could be something you learned. And then what I'm extra interested in are your need to knows. And I want to kind of go over the color coding here. What do you need to know about personalized learning itself? If you've got a question or a need to know about personalized learning, make like that the subject itself, make that yellow. If you've got a question about the process that we're going to go through, like the space redesigned cohort process over the next couple months, make that one blue. If you've got a question about what your product might look like or what it should look like or whatever, make that question pink. If you only have yellow questions, that's great. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. But categorize your questions that way, because that will help me kind of discern how much detail I need to talk about looking ahead what the next couple sessions, or not really sessions, but interactions for us might look like. It'll help me know how much detail or how much time to set aside to talk about certification if we've got lots of questions on the product. And then the yellow ones will help me put together our playlists and gather resources for you. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll set a timer for 2 minutes, knowing that it'll probably be like 3 or 4, for you to capture your knows and need to knows. And I'm putting the link to the Jamboard in the chat again now. So please take 2 or 3 minutes to capture your knows and need to knows. What do you already know about personalized learning? And then what do you need to know about personalized learning itself, our process, or your product? Finish the thought that you've got, if you're typing it right now on the Jamboard. If something comes up tonight at 4 a.m. when all of us have our best ideas and you feel really compelled to put something on the Jamboard, be my guest. We will come back to this tomorrow too. We'll update it at least one more time tomorrow, maybe twice, just, weather permitting. I'm just kidding, time permitting. And again, like, I'll use this to kind of gauge our growth and competency, but I'll also use this to help influence what kind of stuff I pull, how much time I spend on stuff, what things we talk about, what workshops I offer. I very much try to live and model planning a skeleton. I know broadly what we're going to be doing and looking and sequencing, tomorrow, but a lot of that is going to be put in, tonight when we finish up, just like you would do in between school days or classes or whatever. You're going to pivot based on what kids say and based on the data that you collect. Okay, well, I'll screen share one last time for tonight. So we just did a need to know protocol, and you may or may not have noticed, and it's totally fine if you didn't, but I did tag this with the curiosity-driven learning, learning and teaching component, because I'm going to construct instructional experiences based on what you're curious about. I'm going to offer workshops based on what you're curious about. So this is a protocol you could use in the classroom to drive learning, especially if you're in a STEM classroom, or if you're doing project-based learning already, or IDM that have a compelling question at the beginning. And kids develop supporting questions. I know Rachel is steeped in that. So I just wanted to have that little meta moment and point that out. Tomorrow, and I'll skip this last reflection because I'm not holding you over. Tomorrow, again, just an overview. We'll start at 9 using the same link that we have today. We'll very first do some community building. We'll go over the final defense rubric and process, and then we'll talk a whole lot about our constellation. And I'll have some workshops, and we'll do some deep dives, and I'll have some signups for one-to-ones and that kind of thing. But without further ado, I'll stop talking. Thank you guys again so much for pivoting to virtual. Thank you so much for your engagement. I am so jazzed to look at more of your Becoming Me profiles. Sarah Weedman is out this week for surgery, but something she always says is the more trauma you suffer, the funnier you become. And I think teachers are generally really funny people. I don't know what that says about us, but we are generally hilarious. So I'm excited to look at your Becoming Me profiles. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you so much. I look forward to getting to know you and co-constructing the rest of our personalized learning journey together. Have a good night, y'all.